Hello and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with the Disability Policy for All. Today I have the great fortune to be talking to Donna Meltzer, who is the Executive Director of the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities that represents the DD councils around the country. AUCD works with the council and Donna's organization on national and state level. Donna is also the co-chair of the CCD Fiscal Policy Task Force, along with our Policy Director, Kim Mush, and now. So welcome, Donna.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you for taking the time to speak to me about the federal budget and funding for programs that are important to us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's really an honor and a pleasure for me to be here with you today.
The first question is, please share with the audience what is the president proposing in his budget, and why should we care?
That's a great question. I think the first thing that's important to understand is that we haven't seen the president's budget yet. So let me say that in a typical year, a president puts out a budget, he releases a budget to Congress, typically on the first Monday in February. But this isn't a typical year because we have a brand new president and a new administration. So this year is a little bit more typical for a new administration. So we haven't seen a budget yet. We have heard that on March 16th, the president will release what they're calling a skinny budget. I know we all want to think that we're skinny, but that might not be so good in a budget. What they mean by a skinny budget is it's going to be kind of an outline, and it's not going to have all of the detail that we would like to see and to know so that we can really understand what's in the president's budget. We know a couple of things because he's hinted about some things, like when he spoke to the country in a State of the Union address last week. If you recall, he talked a lot about wanting to give more money to the military and maybe a little bit to some health programs and some other things. So we have an idea of what might be in the budget, but we haven't seen any details yet.
Okay, thank you. What happens after the budget? The president submits the budget, and also what are our congressional leaders planning to do next?
Well, there's a lot of things that have to be done. You know, getting a budget done and getting through what we call the appropriations process, which is literally getting money out to individual organizations and programs, takes months of action. So here's kind of how it should go. The president will come up with a budget, hopefully sometime in March with more detail to follow, and the president will release that budget to Congress. Congress has budget committees. There's a budget committee for the House and a budget committee for the Senate. So once they see the president's budget, which here's something I want to remind everybody of, the president's budget is not a bill that gets signed into law. It's what we call a blueprint. It kind of gives an idea of what should be in the budget, what he wants to see. But Congress has a mind of its own, right? So the Congressional Budget Committee in the House and the Senate will each write their own budgets. They'll gather ideas from the president's budget, and then they'll write their own budgets, and they will hopefully pass them through the committee, then it will go to the floor of the House and the floor of the Senate. Ideally, then they'll bring those two together, the House bill and the Senate bill, and they'll pass a joint budget resolution. In many years, that never happens. There might be a House bill, there might be a Senate bill, but they never get to the joint bill. This year, we think that they might, because there's a reason. Have you heard about this term that they talk about of reconciliation? We've been hearing a lot about that because of the Affordable Care Act bill that they just released last night.
Yeah.
They need those reconciliation instructions in order to move that forward. And the only way to get to that is to have a joint budget resolution. So we hope that over the next month or two, the budget committees will meet, they'll get their work done, and they will pass a budget. And then later in the spring, maybe like around May, even early June, then once there's a budget, the appropriations committees will get to work once they have those big budget numbers, and then they'll be able to assign how much funding goes to each and every program. Programs like USEDS and DD councils and PNAs and so many others that then use the money out in the states to do the work that they do.
So what happens if the Senate and the House don't agree?
So if they don't agree, then they'll still move forward, but they won't be able to do reconciliation. So that might be a plus for us. We don't really know how that will play out in the long run, but it might put the brakes on bringing forward some policy that we're not so happy about. But eventually there are built-in deadlines in this process so that we don't get to a place where we can't put money out into communities. So if the middle of May rolls around and there's no budget done, the appropriators can still go to work, and the budget that they'll use is the budget from last year.
Okay.
I know, it's complicated.
Yes. And it doesn't seem always fair.
You're right, it's not always fair.